Have you realized by now that the mind always wants to be the main protagonist? And truth is, it takes you away from the present moment. I don't care how cliche do you think that the idea of talking about being in the present moment is, because I know it's cliche. Everybody does it, but but there is a double standards here, or some caveats to being in the present moment. Why am I saying this? Look, truth is, you can live your life thinking that everything happens for a reason, and you can live your life don't believing in the meaning of anything. And there is trouble when you are in one of those extremes. And well, if you read about the spiritual journeys of some people out there, or even in YouTube, you can just watch spiritual awakening um, documentary or self-reports that are very commonly done in this current time. You'll see that people realize at some point that it is in the balance of the search for meaning that you actually learn to be in the present moment, right? Because if you're talking about being in the present moment with someone who has not yet done the internal work that allows them to have a clear mind to tap into the present moment more easily, they're just going to dismiss you. That's the truth. But there are also people out there that talk so much about being in the present moment, and the reality is that talking about this can be a escape from the present moment itself. I think there's a difference, right, between doing something because you feel inspired, because you feel like God is directing you to do that, and doing something because someone told you it's the right thing to do. Especially in the spiritual community that you see on Instagram and YouTube recently, you start having an awakening and start realizing some things about yourself, and that the algorithm pushes you to videos like how to find your purpose, and then you start worrying that you have not found your purpose yet, even though you just started realizing stuff about yourself, right? And again, at the end of the day, it looks to me like it's all karma. If you feel like you're inclined to do something, you could be doing God's work. You could be inspired from having an inspiration from God to do that, but could also be that you are doing something because you believe that is expected of you in some way. But if we're gonna talk about duality here, I'm just bound to be hypercritical, right? I wouldn't be making this video for if it weren't for one of those two reasons. And I think a good takeaway that we can take from this is the neurosis of looking for meaning in everything you do could be stopping you from actually moving on with your life. I don't know, manifesting stuff that you need, that you want. Yeah, I know that if you feel like you need something, you're not actually manifesting it. You understand me. Because here's the thing, whether you feel inclined to do something by God's will, or you feel like you're doing something because mechanical stuff, ego stuff. If you don't know the answer to that exactly, you will not know the answer until you play out that thing a little bit. Because it's not your job really to be trying to find meaning and anticipating everything. You realize that that's the mind's job. It's the mind's job to protect you from certain stuff, and it makes sense to think that in an age where people live so much inside their heads, we have an exacerbated rationality that is not being used for good. It's not being used correctly, you could say. I know that's you can talk about this from a lot of endpoints, right? There's no correct, there's no right and wrong, whatever. You understand what I'm talking about here. It's the middle way. You only learn. There are certain stuff in your life that you are going to need to be annoying about it in terms of persistence. You're just going to be so persistent about knowing something, even though other people have already lived through something similar and that they tell you the way of the road. There are certain stuff that you will need to learn to walk by yourself, because that's the only way you will learn. That's the only way you will learn if what you are doing is actually aligned with yourself or is coming from a place of lack. It's coming from a place of ego. There's a guy on Instagram that said, "This is a perilous dance." Well, it looks like it, to be honest. There are certain questions out there that we can make, but we can learn to be okay to not know the answer. Like, for example, is there a place where you actually eradicate the ego, or is that even necessary? I think those are questions that may, again, stop us from actually living our life. Could be expressing ourselves and learning through our actions, but we are too afraid to do stuff because that's not spiritual enough, or I'm going to be acting for my ego. Okay, so what is it now? You're going to be, sorry, got a little allergy to my cat. You see how, trying to anticipate stuff so much actually makes you stuck. And then you'll be stuck on that for a while and you start becoming kind of depressed. You start feeling down. You go into the shower, you put it on a hot shower, and you just almost in fetal position in the shower, being sorry for yourself. Which is okay. You need to have compassion for yourself as well. But if you cultivate enough awareness, you can be watching yourself, be compassionate towards yourself. Be compassionate towards the parts of you that are not in the way you would expect them to be, because you have been consuming so much spiritual content that you don't actually know what to do with your life, because some people say that doing certain stuff is wrong, eating meat is wrong. I don't know, having material pursuits like going after a specific career. Well, you could see the truth, some truth in that kind of content, but you also cannot deny yourself from experiencing stuff from your authenticity standpoint, right? Look, if it's like this, you need to say, look, if I'm wrong, so be it. At least I won't live my life looking back and thinking that I should have done something that I didn't do. And this, doing this inevitably clears the road for you. Clears the road in the sense that when you live through life without being scared of walking a specific path, defined right or wrong by external people, what happens is you learn things by yourself and you start to trust and you start to discern. You start to discern whether your actions are coming from that loving place or not. No way to know. I cannot tell you what you need to do, right? Nobody can. Nobody can. Truth is, people really depend on certain content. You see, how you can become dependent, like from, for example, pick a card tarot readings, right? Yes, it's very good to give you pointings, directions. I myself have encountered some of those readings, and to be honest, it's kind of shocking how precise they are. But at the same time, it can become an indulgence, just like you sometimes binge watch Netflix eating stuff in your face, right? I'm talking to me right now too. Don't worry about it. Those are all things I deal with as well. I think we get stuck so much about worrying about needing to be in a specific place all the time. You know, for example, you can see that I'm moving myself a little bit. I'm moving my little box for my microphone, and that may give me an appearance of someone who has anxiety. And to be honest with you, I just left my job, which is in IT, and so I code, and that's, yeah, that makes my mind be very fast at times. But you know, it's my current way of living life. And now I'm talking about it in a way that is almost like explaining my motives to you. Like I feel like I need to explain my motives to you. You see how that pattern can happen in your life as well, where you live a certain way and then you just start becoming so apologetic and you start wanting to explain to other people why you do the things you do because you worry about their image towards you. You know, I could stop, get my notebook and say, like, what's the meaning of that? Let's find it out, you know. Sometimes, yeah, you can do self-inquiry, writing in a notebook, but sometimes you just have to live through stuff. Because it's almost like you can watch yourself taking the wrong way. Again, wrong is abstract, but you know what is right and wrong for you, basically. Yeah, sometimes you just need to take a deep breath and let whatever comes up be what it is without needing to define, without needing to put a finger on someone or something. That's the balance of things. That's the key right there. Learning to be balanced, learning to autocorrect yourself without it looking like you're punishing yourself. autocorrect. Simply realize what you're doing that can be done better. Do that from your heart. Don't spend time punishing yourself mentally for things that, to be honest with you, are quite out of your control. And paradoxically, once you learn and you look at yourself from this compassionate standpoint, that's when you actually can change. And you can actually redesign your life, your mind, your experience, your present moment. Not from a place of not liking the present moment like it is, but through realizing this natural process of becoming who you really are. Each and every day, more and more. Does that make sense to you? I hope it does, because in my head it makes a lot of sense, but who knows, I may be talking rubbish. See you next video.